Hey everyone, welcome back to the Twin Talks Ballet YouTube channel. I'm Kirsten and I'm here with my good friend, Katherine Eppink.
Hi.
Hello. We are going to talk about her journey to becoming a principal dancer with Ballet Vero Beach in Florida. It's a small regional company, and ever since Katherine and I met in college, I've had such a great time following along with your journey, Kat, and I'm so excited to talk about not only how you got to where you are, how you chose this path, or who knows, stumbled upon it and then stuck with it, what the unique joys and challenges are of dancing for a small company, and advice for aspiring professional dancers, and a lot of other things we'll get to. Uh,
Yeah.
yes, thank you so much for coming on the channel. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I've loved watching your journey and seeing this YouTube channel take off. And I truly like the reason I want to do this with you is I think that it's such an amazing resource for people. And there's not a lot of stuff like that. Like, not a lot of people are talking about these things. So kudos to you. And I'm so excited to see you again.
I know. It's been so long since we talked. So let's start with actually, speaking of like how we met at the University of Utah. And when I was a freshman, you were a senior. And for everyone, just to so everyone knows, I looked up to you, still look up to you big time. I was saying on my Instagram stories that I had the privilege of sharing some roles with you, literally.
Likewise.
Um, and I learned so much from your positivity and your work ethic and your artistry. There's just so much that you set an example in. So I'm really excited.
I'm blushing.
It's true. I don't lie. So let's start with, I'd love to ask you, what did your journey look like from starting ballet to joining the program at the University of Utah?
Sure. Yeah. So I took my first dance class when I was 6 years old, and it was actually a hip hop class. And it was like super recreational, not at an academy. It was just recreational dancing. I didn't have any like particular crazy ability, but I loved to dance. I was obsessed with going to dance class each week. My teacher at that time was also the studio owner. And I think she saw, I don't know if it was just like, I was an excited kid about dance or she saw potential, but she invited me to join the studio's competition jazz program. And part of being in that was taking ballet technique classes. So that's how I found myself in a ballet class. And I didn't start ballet till I was 8. So in the ballet world, that's a late bloomer for a female, maybe. And I, fast forward, I auditioned for the Nutcracker when I was 11. And up until that point, I had only ever been in like dance recitals or dance competition, like a very small snippet of what dance could be. And so as soon as I was in the Nutcracker, I just fell in love. I loved the theater. I loved the sets, the costumes, the music. I loved that it was like a full production with a cast. And that was the first time I saw professional dance too, because the guest artists were professionals. And so from that point at 11, I made some sort of declaration to my mom that I was going to be a ballerina and that my sights were set on that. I never had a backup plan. It was always ballet from that point on. So I ended up attending summer intensives, as we do. I think my first one, I was 13. And I was everywhere from PMB in Seattle to Joffrey and ABT in New York and like everything in between. And then when I was 18, I was, in that place trying to decide, okay, do I want to go to company auditions and hope for like a traineeship or a second company? Or do I want to find, more of an academy or a university setting? And for me, I was super real with myself. And I knew that it was going to be a disservice to my dancing to like skip that step that takes you from pre-professional to professional. I knew that I needed something else super meaty in the next few years to like prepare me for a company. And that's how I ended up at the University of Utah. I wanted something that mimicked a company schedule and repertoire, but also had really challenging daily training. And that's where we ended up.
Yes. And I can say I've having watched your technique and of course your artistry as well, like I mentioned, you're a very well-trained dancer. And what I loved is when I watched you in college for just that 1 year is you're very versatile. So I could see now, having heard like your background, I could see where like the jazz competition came in. But what I love about your example is you like dancers can often get stuck in a box and like define one thing. Like you're a competition dancer, and even if you try to pursue ballet, you're always going to look like a competition dancer. But what I love about your dancing is like when you did contemporary, it's like, oh, she's a contemporary dancer. And then when you did ballet, oh, she's a ballet dancer. And so I love that you're an example of being multiple things. Well, that kind of feels like you were in one box and then you jump to another box. Now, I like to say like we don't exist purely in any of the boxes
right.
of the scaffold, right?
Yeah, totally. 100%. Thank you. That's sweet of you.
Of course. So then since you went on to dance for American Northwest Ballet, which was Ballet Nebraska after school. Yes. What I'm curious to like kind of get in your mind during senior year, because that's like such, it can be like expected to be a stressful year for so many dancers. There is technically uncertainty of like, what will your next step be? So I'd love to hear what was your kind of headspace, your mindset going into audition season? Did you know I want to dance for a small company? Yeah, like what were your expectations and how were you approaching audition season?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I got amazing advice from my mom, who is not a dancer, but who attended grad school. And so she went through that process of finding a grad program that was a good fit for her. And she kind of applied that to my stresses of finding a dance company. And she told me that I should pick a couple like startups where, I mean, as dancers, we never have a guaranteed job, right? There's nothing that we're like, oh, this is in the bag. But she advised me to pick a couple companies that I thought I could probably get a job with. And they're going to be smaller and definitely hiring. And maybe I know somebody already in the company, things like that. And then she said, pick a couple companies that are like medium sized that you don't know. Maybe you're a good fit, maybe you're not, but it seems like it would be a possibility and you're interested. Mm-hmm. And then just because you're doing it, pick a couple companies that are like your dream company and you probably won't get a job there, but you might as well audition because this is the time in your life when you're doing that. Yeah. And truly, that's how I picked. I think I auditioned 10 places, and that's how I chose where I was going to go. Is I made sure I had eggs in every basket, right? So I didn't finish the audition season with hopefully nothing. And I think that's a great place to start, especially when you have the scope of the entire really world to choose companies. It's like pick a couple in each category so that you've got a shot at just about everything.
Yeah.
For me, the company that I ended up getting my first job with in Nebraska, I knew people in that company. And at the time that I was auditioning, it was a small company. I think there were like 10 or 12 paid company dancers. And then in the 6 years that I worked there, it grew to 30 paid dancers. Yes. So I was there for it becoming huge. Yeah, but it wasn't a big company when I got hired and when I joined. So it's interesting because I've kind of like within that one job had the scope of like small, medium, large company, just like in that place.
Yes, which is incredible because you had the opportunity to be a full-fledged company member and to do, it looked like, some good roles in the company as well. And it's because you were decisive and you had a strategy. And also I'll say like you're a confident dancer, a confident person. It sounds like when also from what I observed, you were somewhat choosing where you wanted to be instead of kind of coming at it from the energy of like anywhere, just take me.
Oh my gosh. Yes, that is something huge for me, and I like want to put it out in the world. When you go to auditions, yes, you want to give your best impression to whoever is hiring, but you also need to be scoping out, like, is this somewhere I want to spend my time and energy? Like, are the dancers nice? Does the artistic staff support like a nurturing environment? Do I like the rep? Do I like the amount of work weeks? Like, it's your life. And I know that we all just want to get a job, but oh my gosh, you have to be your own advocate in that. It's so important.
Amen.
Yeah.
Choose where you want to live, where you want to work.
Yeah.
And like actively, you have to, acknowledge the scarcity mindset that is so understandable. Like there is scarcity technically in the dance world, but there are also people creating companies. There are small companies with turnover. Even in the last year, during the pandemic, there are multiple clients I've worked with that have gotten company jobs that are paying.
That's amazing.
They didn't win YGP. They're not
right.
They're beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
It's kind of like me. Like I didn't even flip in place at YGP. I one time. I was never like the wow.
But yeah, that's not the defining things though. It's really like who has the grit and the desire, and like those are the people getting jobs. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Who cares if you won?
Right. Because I've also worked with dancers who have a large Instagram following. They actually do place at YGP. They are known. Like I'm thinking specific people. And there's a pressure that comes with that.
Yeah.
That actually can inhibit you. And it kind of follows you. And it's kind of in the back of your mind, like people know me from Instagram.
Expectation. Yeah.
Can't just show. What am I doing?
I loved it.
I'm a dinosaur. You can't just like go take the class. I'm not saying you literally can't, but it's normal to have that thought like, oh, I hope I'm living up to people's expectation of me as someone who placed. So it's not all about all this pedigree, but the commitment you have, the artistry, and what you have to share as a dancer. So
totally.
Next, I'd love to ask you about your journey to Ballet Vero Beach and
totally.
decided to make that move.
Yes. So Ballet Vero Beach is actually a company that I worked for simultaneously. So I've known this director and company since I started my professional career. And then around the same time that they were looking to expand and hire resident dancers, I was looking for something new. And so it was just kind of like this perfect fit. So it's a little unconventional in that I didn't actually audition for this job. It was just a working relationship that I had built for 6 years. And then our timing matched up perfectly, which is not the case always. But there is something to be said for, always putting your best foot forward. And it doesn't really matter like what project you're working on or what school you're teaching at or whatever the circumstance may be, but you always want to represent yourself well because you don't know, when things are going to ebb and flow in a certain way, and you want to make sure that you are making good connections at all times. So that's how I ended up here. And then, sorry, I'm interrupting you.
Oh, interrupting me saying, yeah, that's a good point.
I was just going to finish by saying the structure of BVB, Ballet Vero Beach, is that the hired resident dancers are the principals, and there's 3 of us right now. Excuse me. And then we hire supplemental dancers. We have a sister company that we work with out of Miami, Dimensions Dance Theater of Miami. And we also hire some freelance dancers every once in a while, and that rounds out our casting. So it's a little unconventional in that sense too, that like my day-to-day every week is with, the 3 dancers that are doing kind of some of the lead roles. But then we also have weeks where we're traveling to Miami or they're coming to us, and we have more of like a full company setting during those times.
Wow, that is so cool. And
it is
about in the last couple of years, maybe, I don't know if these are literally new or my awareness is just new to this realm, but quite a few startup companies that have good work environments, and the dancers are able to have a good quality of life. And it's just unconventional in how like certain dancers are temporary and certain are
Mm,
permanent. So it doesn't look like the whole classical mid-sized company structure and schedule necessarily, but that doesn't mean it's less than, but
right.
into like what a
Yeah,
dancer wants. So I'd love to
totally.
ask you actually about your wisdom around networking and
Oh,
relationships, because
yeah,
that's not really taught in ballet training. The prevalent idea is like make yourself technically good enough to be noticed,
right.
like plucked out
Yeah,
of a crowd,
yeah.
rather than having this proactive seeking of relationships and making connections. So what did that, how did the connection with Ballet Vero Beach and the directors there, how did that come about?
Yeah. So in general, it's interesting that you say that because I never consider myself someone who you're going to take one look at and be like, I want to hire her. Like, I don't have a bad facility, but I'm just not that like typical ballerina, like crazy everything. So for me, it was always like, yeah, exactly. If I could get in a rehearsal with somebody and like spend time, I always felt like that's when people would want to hire me, is because they would see like, oh, this girl's hardworking and nice and professional. And like, those are the ways that I've gotten pretty much all of my jobs, including guesting. It's not that like someone walked in a room and saw me. It was somebody worked with me and was like, oh, we like this girl, we want to use her again. So my advice is just, it seems obvious, but like show up on time. Like be kind to the cast that you're working with, whether they're students or professionals. Like just be nice. Be professional in the way that you respond, whether it's, maybe you're having a bad day or you're not getting along with this artistic staff of that particular place, but like, how can you be professional at all times so that you're not coming off in a certain way that's negative? And, it doesn't take a lot to sort of, it's not even really marketing for yourself. It's just like being a good professional dancer, but it doesn't take a lot of effort, but it
Yeah.
goes so far because everybody is connected and everyone knows each other. So, if you did a great job at this guesting and this person knows Nancy over here and Nancy needs a sugar plum, like now you've got that guesting, and it's crazy how everything's connected, but it's a kind of a big deal. Like you have to be nice and professional.
All the time. Wow. That's really encouraging to hear. I'm sure, I mean, not necessarily, I guess, for me. I'm not looking for a ballet job currently, but I mean, no,
What?
it's encouraging to me. I hope it's really encouraging for the dancers watching that I guess like part of my mission with this channel is to like debunk the glorification of
Totally.
natural talent and just technical perfection as like the ticket to being
Yeah.
plucked out of a crowd. Rather, like take ownership over your experience, be a person who provides
Yes.
value to the room that you're in through your behaviors,
Yeah.
through your personality, your choices, your communication method, and also the way you respond to yourself and your own mistakes. That
Yeah.
shows volume. So you could be like, and again, I saw this in you when we danced together. Like a lot of dancers, they'll make a mistake or have a hard day and they project it like crazy.
Yeah.
And then suddenly their problem becomes everyone's drama. But you're very mature in that it's not like you're shoving down your feelings and everything. Maybe you felt like that, but you were there to do the work.
Yeah.
Ballet is your passion, but also treating it like this is my job. And just that mentality of being a good employee, being a good collaborator, a nice person to work with. You're so right. That speaks volumes about
Yeah.
what it would be like to hire. People want someone, I know I'm, excuse me, I'm getting on
No,
a soapbox.
no, you're totally fine. This is what it's about.
Exactly, right? So, uh, directors, choreographers, teachers, but especially directors and choreographers, they want someone they can trust, not just someone who will impress them.
Right.
Building trust is an interpersonal skill.
Right.
It's not just something you gain from like doing a triple pirouette once.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to what you said, I think that like perfectionism of technique is like maybe 15, maybe 20% of the pie, but I don't know any professionals who are perfect and who never make a mistake. So what are you going to do when you do fall out of that turn on stage? Like, are you going to pout and be grumpy and like hate everyone in the cast because you messed up your pirouette? No. You're gonna, yeah, exactly. You're gonna make up for it in your attitude and work ethic. And that's, I would say, 50% of the pie.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Thank you for dropping all that wisdom thus far.
Yeah. Kirsty.
You're welcome, everyone. So actually, I'd like to talk about your day-to-day experience dancing in this smaller company. How does it differ from the smaller to mid-sized company you're with? Well, let's call like American Midwest Ballet, like let's call that mid-size.
Okay, sure.
Because it has now at least more of that classical company structure. I don't dance, but
you got it. Yeah.
So how does your day-to-day life differ in this company that's smaller versus the previous company?
Yeah. So if we're looking at a mid-sized large company, obviously you're going to start your day with class, and that's going to be the same in both companies. You have, for me, it's always been a 90-minute technique class. When I was in a larger company, just because of the numbers, you weren't always cast in everything. That's how it goes. You might have a choreographer come in and they don't pick you for their piece. That happens all the time, and that's okay. But then maybe that whole week, all you do is take class, right? And then you go home, or then you do other tasks for the company, whatever it may be. Or maybe they picked you, but they only want you in this one section and it rehearses in the last block. So you take class at 9 a.m. and then you have until 5 when your rehearsal starts to like figure out how to like keep yourself warm and remember your choreography and like be ready for this rehearsal that was many hours after you've warmed up. And that's a very common scenario, and it's not a reflection of the company. That's just how scheduling works. That's how it goes. It's not, a bad thing, but that was common. That happened to me all the time. Now in this company, because all of the principal dancers are resident and we're here all the time, we take our class and then we go straight into principal rehearsals. So whatever ballet we're working on, we go directly, we have a 15-minute break and we go directly into rehearsal. So I always feel warm and like prepared and like ready to go. And then also I'm contracted 10 to 4, but like rarely do we rehearse until 4. Usually all of our stuff is stacked up in the morning and we're done a lot of times by 2 o'clock. So then I have the rest of my day to exist as a human being, which is really nice, and like unwind and, recover my body and do whatever I need to do to get ready for the next day. But that I think is the biggest change in schedule. Is just, it's not that you aren't a priority in a big company, but there's so many moving pieces. And then here where it's like, I'm one of 3 dancers, my time is very much valued and the schedule is really catered to us.
Yes. Wow. That must feel amazing on your body.
It is so great.
Personally, I got injured from that struggle of having my rehearsal block, like class, and then 4 or 5, we start rehearsing, which, when you're a dancer in that position, at least for me and my fellow apprentices at that time, it was like, why do they have us towards the end of the day? Right. Like, if we like thought about it for a second, we know that is not ideal for the corps de ballet, but the way a lot of companies work that are maybe like the size of American Midwest Ballet or Oklahoma City Ballet, where I danced, there are a few principal dancers. And so they get that rehearsal block right after technique class, because if
they're doing like Odile or something.
There's like two of them.
Right.
If one of us gets injured in the court of ballet,
Right.
don't worry, there's plenty of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that sounds like a really, really great lifestyle. I'd love to hear as well about like, what are the things that you really enjoy personally about dancing with Ballet Vero Beach? And then we'll get into like, what are some of the challenges or maybe things that you might miss, if anything,
Sure.
from your old environment? But let's start with the joys.
Yes. Okay. So I would say the number one biggest joy has been that I feel like my director and the artistic staff value me and my career. They've obviously invested a lot in my dancing to have me and my partner and one other principal be kind of like the starting resident dancers.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, for example, my director asked me a long time ago some of my dream roles, like just in a casual conversation. And I was just like listing things off, things that I like am obsessed with and would love to dance, not really thinking anything of it. And then the beginning of the season, we got a 5-year plan of like the intended rep for 5 years. And there's like my dream role, boom, 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 because it's just us. So he has the ability to do that and to like make our dreams come true. And that is a super special and unique scenario that I am so grateful for. Kind of in that same breath, I feel like our coaching is so one-on-one and so tailored to like exactly what we need. And it's not that I didn't receive good coaching before, I did, but there were so many people to coach and so many different rehearsals happening that sometimes it was like, okay, it looks good, you're ready, you know, just because that's the nature of company work and only having so many hours in the day. And now I feel like everything is like very carefully crafted, and it's just it's like a very special process at this point. And I feel very grateful for that because it's not the case for everyone.
Yes, yes. I think, man, you really deserve it. And I'll say, like, again, I know it might sound like I'm really trying to flatter you here. I just really want to point out the good that I've seen in your choices, because I don't think this is luck for you. You've made choices that are very smart and wise to get you to this point. And yes, we all know that part of the ballet career, if you're going to make it, is being in the right place at the right time. But in order to do that, like there's this element of like making your own luck too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Present, getting in front of people, and knowing that partially success is a numbers game, and you've been persistent, you've put yourself out there. And so I want to encourage dancers with your example that you've made choices to live how you want to live and dance how you want to dance. And it's given people the opportunity, when you put that out with confidence, to say, I like that.
Yeah.
In that. And so that's an approach I really want to encourage more dancers to adopt, that you don't just have to kind of mold yourself to be whoever you think you need to be accepted, or like find a company to like fit in with and compromise all the aspects of the life that you want to live, like whether it be the city you want to live in or the work schedule, whatever it is. Like, there are opportunities if you go out there and put yourself out there for them. So anyway, the other thing.
Thank you for saying that. That's very sweet. And I completely embrace that, you know, it's your life at the end of the day. It's your career and it's short. So you have to do things that make you happy. And that's really that's the end goal. At least it should be, I think.
I think so too. Amen. Yeah. Observation that I think is also very encouraging is that we're in this phase in the dance world where we're in a new generation of people who are influenced by, I think, the positive aspects of our culture that is valuing the individual. And I'm seeing more startup kind of companies with directors who value their dancers. And it might be small because maybe the company can only afford at first to have a few dancers they really invest in. But I think the approach is changing in the industry. And I'm excited to put this video out there to present dancers with this awareness that, hey, maybe this could be their path too. And it's not the only, or the whole big company thing isn't the only path to like happiness and success.
Totally. Yeah. And I think some of that comes from just like not being aware of how much is out there, right? Like when I was a student, I only knew of like 10 companies off the top of my head when I was a kid. Yeah. And so you think like, if I don't get a job with New York City Ballet or San Francisco Ballet, like I'm not a ballerina, I didn't make it. And that's not the case at all. And even more so now than when I was auditioning, there are so many opportunities. You have to put the time in, you have to network and talk to other dancers and find out like what's out there, because if you want to dance and you work hard, there's a place for you. I like truly believe that. It might not be New York City Ballet, and that's okay. But yeah, there's so much out there. So yeah.
A good tip for dancers is, I've learned this from moving a couple of times. Every time I've moved, I've discovered these like smaller companies or these project-based companies that are really cool, and the people who run them are super awesome. Almost everywhere I've lived.
Yeah.
And now I've recognized that a great strategy, it takes work, but a strategy to find opportunities like this is to think of the cities that you like to visit as a person, and Googling like on Facebook, not even just Google, like go on Facebook and look at pages that are like ballet related. You might see project-based companies that would never show up in like the first page of a Google search. Right.
That is such a good idea. I had never thought of that because it's overwhelming. Like, where do you start? But that is so smart. Pick a city you love, or even a state, like just a location that you love. And that's very good advice.
Yeah. A lot of dancers, myself included, the first time I was auditioning, it's like, okay, it's audition season.
Yeah.
November, Google company.
Yes. Totally. Oh my gosh. I did the same thing, and I laugh now because what a terrible way to audition, but like, you don't know any better. You don't know.
And so then the ones that are going to come up, it's not like, it's the ones that have the best search engine optimization.
Right. Yeah.
It's the ones who have like all the fancy videos and the platforms and the huge budget that not a lot of dancers are going to get into.
Right.
Great little life hack.
I love that.
But let's go back to you and your thoughts, feelings story. How about that? Now let's talk about some of the challenges of this path, because no path is perfect. So what are some things that you find maybe challenging?
Yeah. So my dance partner and I joke, and my director's in on it. Like week 2 of this season, when it was just the 4 of us, we were like, there is nowhere to hide. Meaning if you're having a bad day, you can't like stand at the back bar and pout, because the back bar is also the front bar and everyone's going to know that you're having a bad day. If you want to hide because you're having like a bad turning day and you just don't want corrections on this pirouette combination, like too bad, you're going to get corrections. But I will say, in that same, idea, as long as you are in a place that is supportive, it's okay to have bad days. And my director made that very clear to us from the beginning. He's like, hey, I know that everyone feels super exposed because it's just us, but if you're having a bad day, you can let me know. Like, if you don't want corrections that day in class, you just let me know. And it's very nice to have someone checking up on you emotionally and mentally, because I actually think in the past, and you saw me in school, so you may know this, I always deflected when I was having a hard time with humor. And so I would just kind of like slough things off as like funny when I was actually going through like personal, toughness. And I think it's better to just address it and be like, hey, I didn't sleep last night, so I'm going to be doing my best today, but it might not look as good as my best yesterday. And that's okay. Right?
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's a piece of vulnerability that a lot of dancers can relate to. And now I have more questions.
Yeah, totally.
I think when dancers hear about that invitation to say, like, it's okay to have a bad day, a lot of times in training programs, that's really hard to figure out, like, how do you deal with a bad day? Because in your current life circumstance, your work circumstance, there is space for that. But if you were to kind of give advice to the dancers who were in your position when you were in school, how do you think, like, what is a way to like have a bad day and to handle that well?
Right. It's so tough. And I know that you can relate to me on the fact that like every summer intensive I ever went to, I was terrified to miss a day. Like, let's say I rolled my ankle, I was not going to miss point class the next day. Like I was going to be in class in pain because that's the culture that is kind of projected. That's the expectation, more or less. To me, you have to find your safe people. And in an academy setting, it can sometimes be hard because your teachers are going to be asking a lot of you, but you have to find those teachers that you connect with on a personal level and you feel safe going to and saying, hey, I hurt myself yesterday. I want to try my best today, but if I can't do all 900 releves, is that okay? Or that's why. You have to find people that are supportive of you as a dancer and the longevity of your dancing. And it is tough, but you can't be afraid to stick up for yourself. Even as a student, you have to put yourself first.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's a really good point. Find your safe people. And personally, I want to speak to the dancers who feel like there are no safe people outside of their peers, because I have experienced that deeply. And it was traumatizing and very, very hard. Like every time I would go up to, like, I was in so much physical pain, I couldn't hide it anymore because I got to that point because I was trying to hide it, of course.
Right.
And so when I couldn't hide it anymore, I would go up to say, hey, I can't jump today. I need to sit out of jumps. Is that okay? I would get the eye roll, the like, oh my gosh, or like, when is it going to stop? When are you going to jump? Like the interrogation or the shaming. I definitely experienced that. And for the dancers who feel like they're in that situation, I hope that you can get out as soon as you can, because that's not going to be an environment where you can thrive. There is going to be a period, most likely, where it's not the place for you, but you're completing the semester or something like that. And there is a way to, like, when your body is giving you a boundary or your mind is giving you a boundary and you can't, there are certain times where, okay, it's terrifying because you will literally face judgment. It's not like this hypothetical, I'm afraid of people judging me. There are some environments where people actually judge you and they're kind of, like, not everywhere in the ballet world, but it exists. So for those dancers, I would share the advice that, like, there's a way to, instead of ask, tell them what's happening. And you have, to your point, you have to advocate for yourself. You have to stand up for yourself and ask for what you need. Now, to my point, sometimes you ask for what you need. Sometimes you don't.
They know. Right.
Like, can't you just no, I can't.
Right. Totally.
So in that situation, coming up with that resolution of, this is what I'm going to say. It's not open for discussion. It's not a question. I talk to my doctor and I need to sit out of jumps, or this is what I'm feeling. I know this is a boundary my body is putting up. My plan is to sit out from jumps today. I'm going to do XYZ action.
Right.
I'll check in with you tomorrow. Thank you.
Yeah.
And
that is such a good point. And I'm sorry that you had that experience. That's horrible and never should have happened. But you're right, that does happen to students and professionals everywhere. And it's true. Like, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, if you approach every day and you have put your best foot forward and you have had a positive attitude and you have worked hard, you are allowed to have days that you can't do that. No one is going to be able to run like that every day without a break. And so if you are in a place where you know that you've done your best every day and today you're hurt or you mentally can't do it, and you approach someone and say, hey, this is my plan for the day, I can't do it today, and they don't meet you with respect, that is like number one biggest red flag, like time to audition somewhere else. Please get out. Like, you don't want to be there.
No, yeah. And it's about them and their really their
kind of ego almost.
Oh,
right.
Yeah. Big ego and stories from a few decades ago in the ballet industry with their profession.
Yeah, totally.
Going back also to, or connecting it to the advice you were sharing earlier about being a person who's good to work with.
Yeah.
None of us are perfect. So I'll start that before I share this advice. But being the kind of person where you carry yourself in a way that allows you to have a clear conscience when you go up and say, I am having a day and this is what I need. Like being a respectable person, which all are worthy of respect. Totally. You know what I mean? Like, the kind of person who commands respect, I guess, because of your behaviors. Oh,
sorry, I just had a low battery pop up. I'm just gonna plug this in, but please keep going. I got it. There we go. Okay. Sorry, little intermission. We're back, Act 2.
Should we start with the Polonaise?
Gosh. Hilarious.
I have to keep that in there. Yes. Anyway, we all have probably moments where we can't go up with a totally clear conscience. We know, like, we could have communicated something better or whatever, but just owning that, learning from it, and moving forward still allows you to move forward in environments where you need to.
It might be scary. Right.
Yeah. So with all this, I want to kind of finish off with briefly talking about your experience freelancing.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Because that is a really great option for dancers to expand their network, to get more exposure, to get more professional work. So can you tell us more about how you found or got connected with some of these freelancing gigs you did?
Totally. So like I said earlier, most of my freelancing work has been through connections that I've made, either starting with childhood. Like the first guesting opportunity I had was to go back to that Nutcracker that I started at age 11 and be the principal dancer, which was like full circle, life complete. Thank you very much. It was really, really great. To be able to come back to my hometown. But that was literally just a connection I had made at 11, right? And then my teacher had followed me obviously through college and into my career. And then I got hired back on, and I've done that guesting a few times since then. Other guestings that I've done have been through word of mouth of recommendation. And I actually applied for a guesting and I didn't get it. But then when it came time for that particular company to hire for another show, they already had my information and we had communicated and they liked me. So they hired me for a show that I didn't even ask about. So it's about who you know, making connections and just being, showing your joy for dancing and being a joy to work for. Because if someone's bringing you in, especially with like a children's cast, you're also being hired as kind of like a role model and a mentor to these kids. So if you're, blowing everyone off and, not really acting like a professional, my guess is they're not going to give your name to another organization.
Wow. True. And guess what? Your story is like your moment at 11 where you're like, this is what I want to do with my life. It started from the story of getting to see professional dancers in action.
Totally.
And that 100%. Is a very common genesis for this career in a lot of people's stories. And chances are, you wouldn't really want to pursue this if the dancers had a super bad attitude and they weren't being models. So yes. Also, for the dancers who might be thinking like, how do I get these connections? I want to
Yeah.
point out that, yes, part of your connections were just from the training environments that you had been in. And of course, you made a reputation for yourself, not just with your dancing, but your demeanor as a person. And for dancers who might be thinking, but I don't have any connections. First, yes, you do. Think about it for a second. Everyone you know is a connection, and you can talk to them and say, I'm looking for a freelance job. I'm looking for performance opportunities. I'm looking for a small company. And it's amazing that even if the person that you know and you're talking to them, you're saying, this is what I want. If they know the answer, a lot of people are willing to say, I have a friend who.
Exactly. Totally.
And as well, like you can go to it, it doesn't take spending like thousands of dollars that some people might not have to go to a summer program and then get connections there.
Same.
At a lot of those programs, dancers are like one of many. So the connections might not be very strong that you form. But you can go to an open class in your city or travel to a city a couple hours away, just if you are able to do that, and kind of be the person who talks to the teacher after class. It doesn't take much, but just make a little connection. It's things as simple as that start to form your network. Is there anything you would add to that in terms of advice?
Yeah. I mean, it's basically what you just said, but I am the type of person that I love taking open class. I think it's so fun to like travel to new places and see kind of like what their ballet world is and meet dancers from that area. And it's not in a competitive sense at all. I'm not there to like show off or be like, this is who I am. I literally just find it so fun to dance in new places. So when I take trips, when I go, to so-and-so's wedding in San Diego, I look up company classes that I can take in San Diego. And I just say, hey, I'm going to be in town for 3 days. Can I come take class? And you meet so many people that way. Like and it won't necessarily lead to a job, but maybe you met dancer X and he needs a partner for Corsair and he remembers you from the summer and you guys like hit it off. So now you're doing Corsair in San Diego or whatever the situation may be. The dance world is so small and connected and we all have so many, similar experiences. And I just think it's cool to connect with as many people as possible.
Yeah. Yes. This is great insight. Every time I do like this with, I always do it usually with friends and, of course it's with people I know, like, trust, very much respect. And every time I'm like, is everyone hearing this? We can charge money for this.
You're amazing.
It's also the entrepreneur in me talking. I'm like,
totally.
We should make this a webinar.
Actually, I was thinking, I looked you up to see if you had a podcast because when I listen to you and I watch your YouTube videos, I'm like, you need a podcast, like one that people subscribe to weekly and listen to on their long road trips. Like you need it. It speaks to me.
Okay.
Have you ever thought about doing it?
Yes, many times.
I think you would be fantastic.
So I'm receiving that.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Marinate on that.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good.
Let's finish out with just your advice for dancers let's start with dancers who are aspiring professionals. And maybe they're in that place of like really loving ballet, like you and me, and experiencing the very normal angst of wondering, I love ballet, but will I make it? How can I make it? It's an angsty process. So what advice do you have for dancers who are trying to make their way in this industry?
Yeah. So I feel like I'm a little bit of a cliche here, but I am such a believer that you cannot let the anxiety and the unknown take away your joy of dancing. Because if you let that dissipate, what's the point? What are you doing it all for? Right. And all that's going to happen on your way, if you let all of that disappear, is you're going to lose your confidence, you're going to lose your motivation, and then you've lost your passion. So regardless of what your situation is, whether you're auditioning, you have no job offers, you're finishing school, like whatever the scenario, don't forget why you're doing it and how much you love to dance. And if you can push through the trials and tribulations, because there will undoubtedly be some, you're going to find a place, and maybe you start somewhere and then you change paths and you bounce around, and that's okay too. But if you can remember why you love to dance and why you started everything and continue to enjoy it, you will find a way in this professional field. There's a place for you.
Yes. I so agree with that. As long as the body allows.
Yes.
Have a will, there is a way. If you have an open heart, open mind, and get creative, I think.
Totally.
Believe that next step is out there. Ballet requires a lot of faith.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's a lot of blind, like, decision making in the beginning too. Like thank God for people like you, but at least when I was auditioning, I had very little guidance. I was just kind of like, going for it. But it takes a lot of faith. You're right. And you just go for it and pursue a path and see where it leads you.
Yes. Now, I'd love to hear if you have any encouragement for fellow professional dancers, because there are plenty of professional dancers who watch these videos, and I want to speak to them too, kind of like brethren. What words of encouragement do you have for them?
Yeah. So I think we did touch on this, but just kind of rechecking in with yourself. Are you in a place that is making you happy, is meeting you in the middle with respect? Are you dancing roles that you enjoy and want to be dancing? And even as I say that, of course, there's going to be a time where you're new to a company and you're maybe understudying or, doing core roles or whatever the situation may be. But if you're looking at your timeline as like the scope of your career, you don't want to spend 10 of your 11 years doing roles that you don't care about. So just reevaluate maybe even every season and say, hey, am I in the place I want to be? Or should I like put out feelers and see if there's another adventure for me that I might enjoy even more, which can be scary. But if you have those feelings, then it's worth kind of pursuing and seeing where it goes.
I love how you put that. Is there another adventure out there for me that I can enjoy even more? And that's so positively motivated instead of understandably out of fear, staying so long somewhere until you can't take it anymore. And at that point, you might not even be able to take ballet anymore because you're so miserable. Yeah. And so, don't wait until you're so miserable, or, until kind of that light and that spark and that passion for ballet has left. Not that you can't get it back, but to follow what you want for your career and to put yourself out there, to have the chance, really, to give yourself a chance.
Yes, you deserve it.
Dang. Often we don't give ourselves the chance to flourish, to thrive as artists, because we're just accepting whatever we think we can get.
Because a lot of people get put in a box and then they think they believe that box and they think like that's all that I am as a dancer. And that's not true. Like you were everything when you came there, and you're going to be everything and more when you leave, if you leave. So you gotta keep your shine.
Exactly. And I want to say that briefly, there are multiple dancers I know personally, whether they're friends or I've worked with them, some even in the pandemic, who, like one I'm thinking of specifically, had a contract available to her, a professional company contract at a classical ballet company in the middle of the pandemic. And she had felt for a couple months that it was not a fit for her there. And there was an adventure that awaited, and it was scary, but she decided to put herself out there for other opportunities. And in 2020, y'all, she got another company contract that actually aligned with all of her values as a person.
Amazing. So good for her. I love that.
Possible. And there are also friends. I don't want to make it seem like it's always perfect, there are friends I have who left a company and had a year where they just danced recreationally and then got back into
Mm.
the audition circuit. But it
Which-
led to a life
Yeah.
I'm happy with. So
That's the thing. Even if you do a whole like slew of auditions and you end up with nothing, that's not the end of your career.
yeah,
That gives you a chance to kind of regroup and redecide how you're going to audition for the next year. But like, do not let that be like, that's it. I didn't get a job. I'm done dancing.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay, giving the people lots of value.
Ah, good.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, how could I not? On Instagram, I'm like, Kat's thriving. We
Oh,
all
you're
need
so
some of
sweet.
this.
Ah, oh my gosh. Now I want to catch up in person. I'm like, I could come to Austin.
Get over here.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and close out this video. I want to thank everyone who's still watching for watching, and I'll have your Instagram information or whatever you'd like to share
Yeah.
in the description if dancers would like to follow you. Um, is there anything that you would like dancers to know in terms of like maybe following on Instagram if they'd like to reach out to you or anything like that in terms of following you?
Sure. Yeah. You can follow me on Instagram. It's at CurlyCat.
Really?
And feel free to DM me if you have more personal things that we talked about that you want to reach out about. I will definitely get back to you. And also just sending my love to all of you and wishing you the very best in all of your endeavors.
Yes, thank you, Kat. It's generous of you. I know I kind of put you on the spot. Like, are you
No?
open to dancers?
Yes. Totally fine. Yes.
Yeah, thank you for that. And again, thank you everyone for watching. We'll be back, or I'll be back with probably more interviews like this. And I'd love to hear everyone what you thought of our conversation in the comments below. So thank you again, Kat. And we'll say ta ta.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.